This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to the College School Washington Site Lead Training. My name is Christina Winstead. I'm the Program Associate for Outreach at the Washington Student Achievement Council. I'm excited to talk to you about one of our components of the 12th Year Campaign. Today, we're going to talk about the 12th Year Campaign, how to get started as a College School Washington site, how to plan your event and prepare for it, your support team information and your event day volunteer information, event day coordination, and wrapping up. The Washington Student Achievement Council advances educational opportunities in attainment in Washington State. I feel really fortunate to be part of an organization that has such an awesome goal. The 12th Year Campaign is a combination of 3 different initiatives. We have the American College Application Campaign, College Goal Washington, and the FAFSA Completion Initiative. All 3 of those combined are the 12th Year Campaign, and this is just one component of that campaign. So for College Goal Washington, what we do is we help put together events and activities through our sites so students have more opportunities to complete their financial aid applications. We want students to complete either their FAFSA or their WASFA. The free application for federal student aid is the federal application, and the WASFA, the Washington Application for State Financial Aid, is our state application for undocumented students. We're really fortunate in Washington State to have applications for both students, and so I feel like as we go into this work, we want to be very mindful when putting on events, that we are putting on events that are inclusive of both applications. The Washington Student Achievement Council, we administer these programs, and the reason why we do this is I looked at FAFSA data this morning, and it hasn't even gone up that much, but last year, only 53% of seniors successfully completed a FAFSA application for school. And so what that tells me is that we have some work to do to increase our FAFSA applications and make sure that all of our students who need post-secondary education funding are applying for funding through a FAFSA or WASFA. In 2017-18, we were really fortunate with our sites to see a 10% increase above non-12th year campaign sites with their FAFSA completion. And the reason why we do this work is because we want students to have opportunities. And so if you look at our survey, we had 78% that either strongly agreed or agreed that their participation in one of these events increase their likelihood of going to school next year, going to college. So we want to make sure that they know not just what their application has to be, but that they know how to complete the application, they know what colleges they're applying for. We just want them to feel very confident in this process, which can be kind of a daunting process. And here's some quotes from our students. I was really excited to see that students found not just the assistance in these workshops, but really saw different opportunities at these workshops that they didn't think about before. And so for some students, just having someone walk them through a financial aid application and completing it with them really makes the difference between them going or not going. Last year, our 12th year campaign had over 200 events during the school year and even into the summer this year. The events took place everywhere. It wasn't just at the high schools. We have at colleges, public libraries. I did an event on a dock this year even. I mean, we will go and do events and support those events with materials. Anyone who's serving students in these processes, we're here to support. These Google Maps were created to help students find events, so you can see anywhere with a 12th year shield was where there were events this year. And so we want to make sure we have this on our website for students to use so that if they miss their high school's event, that they have an event near them. The yellow stars on this map show all the districts that are receiving the access to the FAFSA completion portal, and then we have some partner credit union spots on there as well, just kind of show that we might be doing some work with them to provide some events locally. So the FAFSA Completion Initiative Data Portal is one of my favorite things in the world because it gives us access to data every single week, letting us know aggregate data as well as student-specific data. Aggregate data is accessible by anyone, so anyone can go in and look and see if a district has a district or a high school, what their processed applications look like when it comes to numbers, so they can see the percentage of completed applications that are successful, submitted with errors, and then people who have not submitted a FAFSA. They will not see student-specific information, but they'll see your aggregate data. If a school has signed a data sharing agreement and new ones are coming out this fall for next year, then those designated people will have access to student-specific data. They'll be able to see if a student's completed the FAFSA with errors, without errors, if they're missing signatures, or if they haven't completed it at all. This allows you to do some intentional outreach to students to make sure that if they've started the application but they haven't completed it, or that they've completed it with errors, that we can reach out and help them. As a 12th Year campaign site, I encourage you, if you find that you have a large number of errors among your students, especially 20 or more, that reach out to me, because I may be able to do some virtual assistance to help you with your students to complete their applications without errors. And so if you have more than 25 errors, I'm probably going to reach out to you just to see what I can do to help get the students with errors processed successfully. And the reason for that is we had over 2,200 seniors last year that completed a financial aid application, a FAFSA, but didn't complete it successfully and don't have it completed in a way that will allow them to get aid. And so that means that there's over 2,000 students that are not going to go to school next year with aid because they didn't complete it successfully. And that just breaks my heart. So I want to make sure we do everything we can to complete those, to fix those errors. So another new thing that we had this year is the +5 push, which I'm also very excited about. Those of you who know me know that this was something really big for me last year. We wanted to create some goal setting for FAFSA, WASFA completion. So any school that increases their FAFSA by 5% from their last year, we're looking at that FAFSA completion data from the previous year rates, they'll be recognized for their efforts with an award at the Summer Counselors Institute. And so we did that this year. We had 28 high schools that achieved the +5 push. And if you're a site that was right on the cusp and you're not sure if you got it, I'm checking numbers so that throughout summer, if you guys hit that during the summer, that you'll still get your award. Don't worry. I will make you an awesome certificate and send it to your school. Those sites that have gotten the award, I'm sending them out this week. So you'll be receiving those. And some of the other schools, I've already dropped them off, or they've received them at the Counselors Institute. You will receive information about your +5 push goal the second week of October. It'll tell you what your goal is, what your amount was last year, what your goal is, and how many students it'll take for you to get to that goal. And so that'll help you with some goal setting. This is our recognition event last year. So they came in these cute little frames. Those who've heard the story know that I gold foiled these things myself, you guys, with partially my hair straightener. So if I have gold leaf in my hair when I come visit you, that's why. I just want to make sure that you guys get the recognition for the work that you're doing. We're so excited to work with you guys, and we're excited to see who can complete the +5 push next year. So we can't do this work alone. There's not one person who's responsible for financial aid and admissions. And so I am really excited to have these partners, because in my mind, this work for not just completing financial aid applications and admissions applications, but just growing college-going culture, is everybody's job. And the more support we can have in the community and through partners, the more support our students will have. So we're really fortunate to have our partners. Washington State Employees Credit Union, again this year, paid for our workbooks and printed materials. And the workbooks this year, guys, are in color. So we're really excited that you guys are going to have more student-friendly, with less words, as we got a review from a student, words, there are a lot of them, but it's going to be a more student-friendly workbook that they can complete to help them with their admissions and financial aid goals. So our goals for this upcoming year, our goals for College Goal Washington, our College Goal Washington goals, we're all about the goals. We want to increase the number of students, especially those from underrepresented populations, who complete a FAFSA or a WASFA statewide. We want to make sure that every student, my goal is every single student, has an opportunity to complete one of these applications with support. We want to ensure that college-bound scholars, those who have the college-bound scholarship, that they're getting their applications in for financial aid as soon after October as possible. And we want to make sure that with all students, October 1st is when it opens, and it's first come, first serve. We want to provide information not just on the application they're completing that day, but the entire financial aid process. And so we have some infographics that will help with that, but we want students to understand that you don't just turn in an application and then all of a sudden you're going to get money. There may be a verification process. There may be other documents they need to complete at the college to get their funds. And then we want to provide support for students who are filing the WASFA. We want to make sure that they have access to not just support in the application process, but really in our college goal events that we're being very mindful about inclusivity when it comes to how we market these events. So we don't want the events to be marketed as just a FAFSA event. We want to make sure that we're very mindful when we're marketing the events. And we have some tips during the FAFSA WASFA line by line of how to do that. So getting started. As a site coordinator, you're going to lead College Goal Washington at your site. Sites aren't just high schools. This can be libraries, community groups. We've had sites of all different sizes. If you are serving seniors or students who are going through this process of missions and financial aid, you can sign up to be a 12th year site. We are happy to work with you. You will manage your event planning and logistics, so you're going to figure out where you're going to have the event, parking, do you have a computer lab? You're going to implement your local marketing and promotion, and we have those resources in the form of printed posters, postcards. We have toolkits that talk about how to do press releases. You're going to recruit your event day volunteers, but if you get stuck, we can help you try to find some volunteers as well. I will be attending some of these events as well, as many as I can possibly get to. You guys that saw me last year know that I will squeeze as many in as possible. And so you also may see or get an email from me saying, hey, can I come to your event, or do you need more assistance at your event? Because I'm going to be in the area and I'd like to come to it. I eat, sleep, and breathe financial aid applications all fall. Oversee the events. You're going to make sure the event goes well by being there and making sure that that people have what they need for the event to be successful. And then at the end of the year, you're just going to complete a very short site lead survey. It's one survey for both campaigns, both the college application campaign and College Goal Washington. It will be 10 questions or less, I promise you. It is really important to do the site lead survey because I need, most importantly, to know what trainings you guys need next year, what materials you would like me to develop over summer, and most importantly, what languages you need for translations for your schools, and any suggestions you have for the upcoming year. It really helps me to be able to look at the site lead surveys and go, okay, we need, like this year, several site lead surveys said we had to make our own directional signage. We have directional signage for you this year that's on your flash drive you'll be getting with your materials. So making sure that those little things that I can do to make your day go smoother, I'm happy to do it. Usually we collect that in the site lead survey, but if you email me, I'm happy to take the information that way as well. And then as the program administrator, WASAC, what I'm going to do is we're going to provide overall project management throughout the state. So we're going to implement this through the entire state. We produce the marketing, training, and event materials and templates for your outreach efforts as well during the campaign. We have a website for the campaign and a Google map so people can see where the events are going to be. And we push out your events. If you have a public event, we will push that information out to local groups as well. We provide training resources, and this includes a Financial Aid 101 presentation with notes for you to use for students. So if you're trying to do a Financial Aid 101 training for your students, just kind of, this is what financial aid is, these are the applications. We have a pre-made presentation for you. So if you can't get someone to come to your school to do that presentation, it's okay because we'll have a script for you as well as a presentation. And if you would like, I can record the presentation for you guys and have it on the website as well. We'll connect you with resources, and then I will try my best to be at many of the events as possible. But if you need additional assistance when planning this event, or if you have concerns, please email me. I'm happy to see if I can help you find volunteers, or maybe it's that you need translators and your school district is struggling finding translators. Whatever you guys need, I won't always have the solution, but I will try my darndest to find that solution for you. So a lot of schools will say, well, we need money for food. Unfortunately, we can't provide that, but I can provide you with all the resources to help you request donations from your community, and help you come up with some solutions. And then we evaluate all the College Goal Washington program activities, and we report out to our stakeholders. So event planning and preparation. This is 3 event models. These are not strict models that you have to follow. It's 3 kind of suggested ways that you could possibly do this. What I encourage you to do is look at the toolkit and resource guide for College Goal Washington and College Application Campaign and see what's the best fit for your school, what's the best fit for your community. So that's why we give kind of suggestions, but you know what works best for you, and so we want you to adapt everything to your needs. Model number 1 is is a FAFSA WASFA filing and support. So this is where you have a computer lab, everyone comes in, people are going to file, and there's going to be people that will help them with those processes. Model 2 is a FAFSA WASFA filing event and a Financial Aid 101 presentation. So sometimes it's a presentation before you start with the applications, just telling people what they're going to be doing, but the why behind it. Why are we doing these applications? Why is it important? And then Model 3 is a FAFSA WASFA filing and college planning event. So this could include panels, this could include workshops, it could include having a lab open to do admissions applications. It could be a bunch of different ways, but it's going to be beyond the just filing and support. Before you decide what kind of model you want to use or the kind of template for your event, think about how many students you expect at your event. And you want to think about this because you also want to think about technology needs to make sure that they can complete their applications. How many volunteers are you going to need for this event to go smoothly? How big is your venue and what resources are available? So I've received a couple phone calls and emails. I know remodels are going on everywhere at schools, it seems like. And so there are several schools, quite a few that are not going to have access to a computer lab this year to be able to do a FAFSA WASFA filing event. And so the good news is that the FAFSA is going to have an app this year so that you can do the application on a smartphone. That may increase our ability and capacity without having computer labs to do these events. The app itself is in beta mode right now. I've seen screenshots of it, but we don't have the actual app yet, so that I don't have a training for you. But don't worry, as soon as it comes out, I promise you, I'm hoping to hear about it in a couple weeks at a conference. As soon as it comes out, I will either develop training materials to you or send out the materials that the federal government has created for those events, for that app. And so there may be some really cool things coming down the line. So when you're thinking about your venue, think about, is this something that we can utilize just in case our venue doesn't meet that capacity? Who's your target audience? This is really important for sites that are not high schools. So, a public library, are you targeting adult returners? Or who are you targeting for this financial aid completion event? And what resources can you offer at the event? Some of the events last year, it was amazing. They offered free tax filing in February with some follow-up events. And so I encourage you to think about what you can offer at your event. Is it translators that you need? Do you need childcare? Think about what would make your event go smoothly. Here's a sample agenda for an event. So on this one, we have an hour beforehand, volunteers report to the computer lab. I say at a bare minimum, at least a half an hour before, I would have your volunteers report in so that they can understand the logistics of your school, but also they feel comfortable and ready to go. And then on this event, they have two different presentations that are going on during the filing event. The only thing about that is sometimes if you have them competing, that you won't get people to come in to actually file. I've had other schools that will do a FSAID lab before they start the FAFSA, and then they have FAFSA WASFA filing. You want to think about when you're planning these events, whatever model works best for you, or whatever the size of your event, you really want to start planning at least a month beforehand. So at least a month beforehand, you're going to look at event details, you're going to get those room reservations. A big one I found last year was some classrooms can't have food in them, but we were having food at some of the events, so making sure that you're not breaking those rules. You're going to register your events with WASAC. This is a real critical one. Even if your event is not open to the public, please register the events at the website I sent out in the email. That way, what I'll be able to do is build that map, but also then I can build a calendar for myself to know when your events are, and it really helps me coordinate my efforts and also finding possibly some volunteers. When you're putting your event dates together, I encourage you to look at some critical things like, are there conferences going on? So a big one is in October, we have the Washington Financial Aid Administrators Conference. It's going to be this year. It's going to be the 10th through the 12th, it looks like, in Yakima. Most of the financial aid offices will be sending staff to that conference, which means it's going to be harder for you to find volunteers from college staff financial aid offices. So I encourage you to think about things like that when you're planning your dates to make sure you get the most volunteers at your event. please place a materials order. So I have all these free, awesome materials for you, including a flash drive for you that has all these digital resources. I would love to send them to you. Believe me, as much as I love pretending there's a table in my cubicle made up of boxes, I would love to have those in your hands instead. So let me send them to you by placing a materials order. Thing to know about the materials order is it takes 1 week to ship. Since I'm on the road quite a bit, I will be processing orders every Thursday, and so they will go out every single Thursday, but know that it takes about a week to ship and probably about 3 days to get to you after that. You're going to promote your event with press releases. You can send those to your local paper. You can do announcements, and all of those are in the toolkit. 3 weeks prior, you want to make sure you create that agenda, watch this training, check in with your support team, and then start distributing that publicity for the event day. And those are materials that you can order from us: posters, postcards, workbooks, everything. 2 weeks prior to the event, you want to promote the event. Finalize that agenda of yours. Finalize your volunteers. Check in with them again. Check in with your IT staff. This is a big one because you want to make sure that they can get on the right websites. Make sure that they can get to their email address where they may be sending their FSA ID information. Students will be using their non-high school email addresses for these things because they won't have access to their high school email address typically after they graduate. So they'll be using their Gmail or Hotmail, whatever mail they're using now. And then I would prepare name tags, and this is the one for volunteers. I would encourage you to have identification on all your volunteers for these events. And so whether it be your school identification that you have for volunteers, or if you want me to create for you the awesome orange volunteer buttons, I am happy to do so. I bought a button maker this year, and so I can do buttons that tell you if it's a translator, what language they're going to have for translators, a WASFA expert, whatever you need. Just send me an email and say, hey, I need 9 buttons and they need to have this on them, and I will make you College Goal Washington volunteer buttons. They are 3-inch buttons, so they're very large, so that people can see them from a distance, but I'd be happy to do that for you. So support team and event day volunteers. Who is your support team? It can be financial aid personnel, your staff, TRIO or Gear Up staff. Parents are an amazing resource, as well as your PTOs. Community organizations, business professionals, I'm noticing more and more want to come to these events because they want to support students that may be going into small business. College staff, especially outreach and admissions personnel, you wouldn't think that right away because they're not in financial aid. A lot of those people are trained in financial aid as well. And at a bare minimum, sometimes they're happy to come out and hold open a lab to do admissions applications. And then local college students are great because sometimes they need volunteer experience, but local college students are currently in college and they are able to have some peer-to-peer conversations with your students about what it's like to go to college. Your students are going to ask them completely different questions than they ask you. They're going to ask you, where do I find tutoring? And they're going to ask the local college student, like, where are the good meals? How do you balance this? They want to talk to their peers about that. And so it's really cool to see how the conversation changes by having a local college student there to talk to them. So the support team, they can help you recruit presenters and volunteers and market your event. For some of you who are doing fundraising, they can help with that as well. And then reminder calls, I know that some of the schools are doing surveys for seniors this year, asking them if they want a reminder call or a reminder about financial aid events. And so this is a great time to use those volunteers to make some of those phone calls. It is fun to have not just the phone calls, but like if you have a remind system that you're using with students, it's also fun to send out those text messages because we know students are looking at those too. Recruiting your volunteers, you're going to identify your contacts. So you'll use a support team resource audit that's in your toolkit, and you can send your potential groups a volunteer recruitment letter. There's 2 different versions in the resource guide. Make sure you add your district procedures to that letter. So if they have to have a background check, things like that, make sure you give them the amount of time it's going to take for that process to occur. Always mention the need for volunteers in any communication. Whenever I'm anywhere, I'm always asking, like, does anyone want to help with financial aid applications? I'll train you. And then you'd be surprised where I get people say, hey, actually, like I was at the vet's office and we were talking, and she's like, I have one of my vet techs that wants to come help with that stuff because she had help at an event years ago, and I thought, that's really cool. Collect that volunteer information so you can keep it for the following year and follow up with them after the event. And these event day volunteers, they can do registration support. It's nice to have a greeter or someone to guide people to where the event's going to be, especially if you have a large campus. Have people who can help with basic FAFSA, WASFA questions. a workshop presenter if you're going to do that. It's nice to have someone who can do that tech support, so maybe someone from IT. And then having a dreamer advisor or someone who works with undocumented students I think is great to have. And then, of course, you want to have some sort of financial aid expert. Volunteers, they should register on our Survey Gizmo if they haven't contacted you. So if it's just a random person who says, I can't come to your event, but I would like to volunteer for things in the future, we have a Survey Gizmo right on our website that they can sign up for. The site should contact those volunteers, or the volunteer coordinator should, and they should get an email with like the information about the event and any pre-meeting event, including if you're having an evening event that does not provide food, just let them know so they can get food beforehand. And then have them participate in that FAFSA WASFA line by line that will be out in early September after the federal updates are released. The other thing with volunteers, as I encourage them, it is not their job to do a financial aid application for someone. It is their job to assist a person in that process. So they're not there to do the applications, they're there to assist students with it. You want to make sure you communicate with your volunteers, provide those documents to them, host that pre-meeting. It can be an hour before, half an hour before, or it can be an event. If you have a very large financial aid event that you're going to be doing, maybe that you do an event the night before or something. Oh, thank you cards. Have your students do the thank you cards. I'm noticing that's becoming a lost art. I went around schools last year and noticed also that students were struggling with how to address an envelope, but I thought it would be really cool if students, I know when I get thank you cards back and it's signed by students, it just, I don't know, I keep them, just to be perfectly honest. So it's nice to get a thank you from the students and staff, and then follow with them to see if they can volunteer again next year. So some of you will be asking for donations, and that is A-okay. But we want to make sure that when you're asking for donations, that you're putting together kind of a process by putting together a list of what you need. We have letters for request in your resource guide, so all you have to do is just pull up one of those and then cut and paste your logo into it and then what you're requesting. I encourage you, from my own efforts, I noticed that requesting in person is better than requesting online, and some people have even used their student leadership to do the request in person. Offer to credit that business at the event, whether it be verbally or by putting their logo somewhere, and be flexible on what they offer you. So you may say, I had one site that they said, hey, we need soda for our event, and they asked a grocery store, and the grocery store said, hey, you know what? We've already donated our maximum we're allowed to donate for the year. But we'd be happy to tell every single customer that comes in here and ask them if they have a senior that's going to go to college next year, and then we will give them information about your event. And so it was really cool. The community got involved in it. So be flexible on what they're offering. Sometimes they can only offer so much a year, and sometimes by being flexible, they may be able to offer you something the following year. Some places will only give donations to 501c3s, and if that is not something that you have access to, sometimes your PTOs can do that, and then follow up with them with a thank you. Marketing and outreach, you want to think about when you're marketing your event locally, think about where your students go. So that's where you're going to want to put up your posters, that's where you're going to want to, whether it's a pizza place, you know, in Olympia, it's old school, like it's, or Vicks. You want to put up the flyers where they're going to be, but also think about that in social media context as well. So a lot of students aren't going to be on Facebook, but they're probably going to be on Instagram. And so when you're thinking about social media, maybe Facebook is where you're really going to intentionally target parents with an event page, because we know parents are on Facebook, but maybe you do something else on Instagram. Connect with your local media. So I encourage you, reporters are going to need that lead time, but man, having that local media come out and interview your students can make some amazing articles. And if you have an article that you guys have in the paper, please forward it to me. I'm always so proud to see what you guys are doing all across the state, and sometimes I get some amazing best practices out of it too. There's a press release template that we have right on the toolkit for you that you just cut and paste stuff into. And then if you do have a reporter coming to your event, think about finding some students for them to interview, because they typically want to interview somebody as well. And then ground this information in the fact that it is a statewide effort and a national initiative. So event day coordination. Okay. During your event day coordination, I encourage you 2 hours beforehand, put up all your signage. Make sure the websites are working. I know that last year we had some outages, and so it's important to check those websites early, log into your computers and make sure they're allowing access to the email sites, and unlock your rooms. For an hour beforehand, I kind of like to have a little volunteer area for people, places for people to put their purses and personal belongings that's in a secure area. And then identify who your volunteer, if you have interpreters coming, identify who they're going to be and then make sure that they're easy to identify by students. And I encourage you, if you do have interpreters, that you include that in your welcome to let families know that there's interpreters there to help them. And then 30 minutes before, I would just do a little quick, get your team together, talk about make sure everyone knows what their role is going to be for the day or the evening, and then it's showtime. If you have any problems during your event, there are some options for assistance. A lot of the times it is IT-based because there's firewall issues. So maybe have your IT person available if possible, or at least run through it once before the event so they know if they're taking down firewalls, that everything is accessible. You can call the 1-800-4FED-AID line, and they are open till 11 p.m., but that's Eastern time. So that really means that we have till 8 with them. So 8 o'clock at night, but most of our events are done by 8 o'clock at night. So you can call in 1-800-4FED-AID as well as your weekend events. Students get nervous about talking on the phone, I have noticed. I don't know if you guys have noticed as well. And so we want to make sure that if they are too scared to talk on the phone, or if that is a skill they're struggling with, then they can do the live chat by typing their questions in, and that's open until 8 o'clock at night as well. And then I will be at as many of these events as possible, but you can always shoot me an email if something is going on. I check that as much as I possibly can, and sometimes I'm in the area as well. And then you can call me, but that number is, I'm typically only here till 5 or 6. And so when you call that number, it's directly to my office. So if it's after those hours, email me because I check my email after hours as well. So hopefully, if that's the case, then I can try to assist you. Event day materials, FSA infographics. So I encourage you, they're on your key drive, your flash drive key that I sent out with your materials. Print those up because they have a Who's My Parent infographic. They have some of those sticky situations, and they have infographics that go with them. Surveys. So if you're going to do the student survey, if you're going to send that information out to students, you're going to have them do them in the lab after they're done with the event. It's not required, but if 10 or more students do the survey, then we can send you a report. And then site leads, you are required to do that site lead survey, 10 or less questions at the end of the year, and I appreciate you so much for doing it. I will preemptively thank you now for doing it because it really helps me plan for the next year. And then directional signage is on your flash drive, but if you get stuck and you can't find it for some reason, it's under the College Bowl Washington folder. You can email me and I will send you the directional signage. Here's some more event day materials. These are the postcards that you can order in 5 languages. So we have English, Vietnamese, Spanish, Russian, and Somali. This is what the materials look like when they get sent to you. So last year we distributed 1,500 workbooks, or 15,000 workbooks. We have 20,000 this year to distribute. We have stickers. Every site that orders materials will get them in this box. They'll get popcorn from me so that you have something to eat while you watch the trainings because I'm Sicilian and I want to feed you. But you'll also get 3 slap bracelet flash drives that you'll be able to use as giveaways for your students. I know it's not a lot, but it's all I had, but I wanted to make sure you had something in there to give away. And then kind of just our wrap up, just our action items from here. Don't forget to order your materials. I want to make sure you have everything you need. Register your event with WASFA. Make those volunteer requests early. In fact, WISHER is coming up, the Washington Council for High School College Relations Tour. It's a great time to make those requests. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And here's my contact information. There's my email, and you had my phone number on the previous slide. This will be recorded and put up on the website by September 7th. So if you're listening to this on the website, welcome. Please feel free to email me if you have questions. And I'm excited to see your events this year. The work that you guys do just is amazing, and I just feel so honored to be able to do this with you guys. If you have any questions or if there's anything I can do to help you, please feel free to contact me. I'm really excited about this fall. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. There will be 2 other webinars, one on the American College Application Campaign, and then we'll also have in a couple weeks a FAFSA WASFA line by line. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day.